Hello everyone and welcome to our discussion today. I hope each and every one of us has had a very good day and a good evening, and we hope to enjoy the session. This has been prompted by what's been going on, the observations I've made. People have gone through difficult moments and people respond to them differently. I know most of you already know me. My name is Otieno Paul Peter. Before I authored the second book, I never used to write this title, author. But nowadays, I find it easy to do. So I like training, I do speaking, I do analysis, and things like that. I'm a business person generally. So we are all welcome to this session, and should you have any question, you'll just type them there, and you will also be able to raise up your hand and you'll be unmuted, then you can always share. Otherwise, let's get on. The question we are trying to answer today is, how do we navigate through the storms? How do we go through the difficulties that befall us? And the truth is, no one is exempted. Each and every one of us has a fair share of the problems that every mankind goes through. And so, either you've gone through a storm, or you are just about to, or you are into one. And I remember one speaker called Brian Tracy said that life is all about crisis. It is problem, 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 crisis. Problem, problem, problem. That is the way it works. And so, if you realize that you are not experiencing enough of them, I used to say, why can't you pray to get them? Because they are beautiful things. They give you the experience. After every crisis, you become wiser and better. This image here reminds me so many years ago, in 1993, when I was in a boat crossing from Homa Bay town to another pyre called Kajimo in West Karachuonyo. I was from a funeral of my maternal grandmother. The ship was full to capacity. It was an engine boat. The storm was brewing. It was looking hopeless. I was with my younger brother, and my biggest problem was whether we would make it to the other side of the lake. There was no any other means. In fact, this was my first time boarding an engine boat. I've experienced these things a few other times. But this was very special to me because as I looked around, I kept imagining whether if something happens, how will I take care of this boy? I knew how to swim, but let me tell you, you can only swim for so long. It was so tough. I looked around, I saw the police officers just counting people and not regulating the numbers. It was difficult to imagine what would happen, but I kept composed. Why? Because I did not want my younger brother to see any trouble in me. In the middle, where you could not see where you're coming from or where you're going, people started wailing, others praying. I kept my cool. And that day, we were lucky that the boat split anyway, but it was just a few meters to the shore. And so, when Jesus talks about being calm in the storm, telling those disciples to be still, I can relate with their tragedy. A few other times I've experienced something close to that. At one point we were fishing. I was going to the other side of the lake to look for fish. I was unlucky. We didn't get much. So, storms come in different ways. Sometimes it is a tragedy of death, it is disease, it is the economic downtime, all sorts of them. And we've come to experience almost all of them, each and every one of us. A long time ago, somebody asked me, after giving a talk, that what do I need to study in order to know what you know, or what to be able to share what you're sharing. And I realized there is no single subject. It moves through all sorts of disciplines. It's philosophy, it's psychology, it's religion, it's science. Some of them are inspired thoughts, and indeed a lot of them have been tested through my own experience. And I've learned that if you have a love affair with knowledge, you will never end up disappointed. It never ends in any heartbreak. Why? Because knowledge somewhat enlightens you. People perish due to lack of knowledge. The more knowledge we gather, the better we become. When growing up in my childhood, I was introduced to the book of Proverbs in the Bible. And one of the chapters I loved was chapter 4. I loved the whole book. I read it many times when I was growing up. And I loved the intensity with which it urges each and every one of us to seek wisdom. Like verse 5 and 6 of chapter 4 says, "Get wisdom, get understanding. Do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you." And so, in studying all these and studying through my experience, I've always learned to love knowledge. One of the biggest discoveries that I came across was this statement. If you've never come across it, then this is your moment of truth. Our inner world creates our outer world. Our inner world creates our outer world. That is a statement by some great speaker and teacher called T. Harv Eker, the author of Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. Our world is created from within us. Whatever we see outside is a reflection of what we've lived within. If we live in fear, doubt, and worry, that is what manifests outside. If we live in faith, if we live focusing on our strengths, if we live seeking knowledge and walking in the truth, then that manifests in our surrounding. Each and every one of us lives his or her own experience. This is a fundamental truth that everyone should come to terms with, that whatever we are within is reflected in the world without. In fact, another writer once said that mind is creative, and this must be Charles Hanel, the author of The Master Key System, one of my all-time favorite books. Mind is creative, and conditions, environments, and all experiences in life are the results of our habitual and predominant mental attitude. There is no way we can escape that truth. I have maybe two stories to relate, and one is for this Carl Wallenda. He's a renowned guy. He was a renowned guy. He was a tightrope walker. He loved the sport of walking on ropes and used to get excited at the very thought of having an opportunity to go and share the experience of walking in the rope, to go and walk in the rope, and he felt exhilarated. But then, one day, somebody asked him, what would happen if one day you fall from the ropes? That thought tormented him for a time, and he went home, asked his wife, what would happen if one day I fall from these ropes? The answer was simple: you die. you will be dead. He got worried. He could not get that thought out of his heart. And the next time he had an opportunity, he tried to inspect everything that would go wrong, asked the strength of the ropes, tried to check the fasteners, checked the pillars, checked every detail. And that time he was more meticulous, and even the organizers were wondering, what is it that has come to your mind? Long story short, that is the time he fell down and died, as he had thought in his mind and heart. Another story is related of a gentleman who was by accident closed inside a cooler. He imagined the way he would freeze to the death and kept repeating, hey, I'm going to freeze to death. I'm going to die. This cold is going to kill me. He repeated the same thing again and again. The following day, he was found dead. But the cooler wasn't on. The power wasn't turned on. So it was just room temperature. They went and did the autopsy, but the result was he died of cold, froze to death. It all was in his mind. And so, through your mind, you create lots of things. One Napoleon Hill once said in his book, Think and Grow Rich, don't expect trouble, for it has a tendency not to disappoint. Most of us expect trouble. We talk about it, we think about it, we nudge it, we fear about it, we imagine, and then we wonder why it keeps happening. Why? Because it doesn't disappoint. In fact, to expect is to get. Only expectant mothers deliver. When you expect something, you get it. And in this case, it means you're expecting through what you think. When we say don't expect, we mean don't think about it, don't meditate about it. Don't put those fear painting pictures, those trouble pictures. You put them in your mind long enough. I think science estimates it to be 16 seconds. If it goes beyond 16 seconds, it starts manifesting. And there is no escape about this. This is a truth, an absolute truth. I love saying that the Creator himself knows why he put it. And all of us just need to abide by it. So if we expect in our thinking, and that is exactly what is happening at the moment, the situation that is taking place around us is of fear. People expecting travel, people expecting lockdown, people expecting to get the virus, and somewhat, if they expect it long enough, they are going to interact with it in one way or the other. So don't expect it. Don't expect economic downtime. It doesn't matter what other people expect. It doesn't matter what other people see or what they say. You just need to guard your mind. It is you and your mind. And you don't need to blame anybody for your own situation. I learned this way back. I think this was 2006. I had just finished college. I got my first job and I was browsing. I came across this quote by Gautama Buddha. From that time, I've always loved studying his philosophy. This is what he said: all that we are is the result of what we have ever thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. I was inspired by this and I started imagining what it means. That everything I think, I become. Whatever I am today is where my thought has brought me. It is the experience that I've always had in my mind, at the back of my mind. And so, later, as I continued to study this philosophy, I could trace it all over, all the way to the Bible. In fact, there is a text in the Bible, in the Proverbs, that says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. all that we are is as a result of what we ever thought. Whatever we think, we become. Mind is everything. So, as a man thinketh, and what I love about this is what he thinks in his heart. That is what he becomes. This is something that people who've listened to me long enough, or who've heard me talk, or who've read my book, have come across. This equation, R equals T plus A. The title of this is, now we need to govern our minds. Our results, R stands for results. The results that we get are given by what we think and our activities. T stands for thoughts and A stands for activities. It means the result is our experience. Whether we are experiencing sickness or economic downtime or whatever it is, or we're failing in exam, that is our result. And it doesn't just come. The formula is, it results from whatever we think, and this thinking, which is thought, has two components. The first component is knowledge, that is what we know. If we know less, whatever we know determines how we think. And if we have negative feelings, it produces negative results. So thoughts have two components. That is what we know and what we feel. What we know and what we feel. That is our thoughts and our feelings. That is emotions. And then our activities, what we do. Depending on how much knowledge we have and how much we are able to govern our minds, we will be able to govern our activities and thus get the results that we want. The question is, why do I usually start with R? Because in determining your experience, whatever experience you want, you always need to start with, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to achieve? So, in this case, if you already know the results that you want to achieve, then that is what you picture. And then the right thoughts should come into place, and thus leading to the right activities. And so, whatever we are going to do is, we want to govern what we think in terms of what gets into our minds. And that will also determine the activities that we are going to have. If you have to remember anything, this is a formula worth remembering. This is something I came up with after some years of studying this particular philosophy. That each one of us have our own different realities. Each and every individual lives in his or her own world. Sometimes we realize that we share the same world because we share the same thoughts, the same experiences. Our thoughts can be determined by what's going around us, like the media. The media can feed our thoughts. What we know, what we read, what we watch, all those things determine what gets into our minds. And whatever gets into our minds, if they reside there long enough, they are going to get into our hearts, and they form part of our beliefs, part of our philosophy. And that manifests in reality. This is what I remember in chemistry a long time ago, there was something they called Markovnikov's rule, that whatever has more hydrogen will always get more hydrogen. And it was explained that the rich get richer. How? Because the experiences they see become also part of the feedback. And if you keep seeing lack, you keep seeing trouble, you realize that more troubles keep coming to you because they form part of your experience, and that is, it feeds back into your thoughts and getting into your heart. And so somebody once said that much gathers more is true in every plane of existence, and that loss leads to greater loss is equally true. Meaning, somebody who lacks somewhat tends to lack and continue to lack. Somebody who has tends to have more and continue to have more. And I think this was also stated by Jesus when he said, "For him who has, more will be given." Why? It is a natural law. How can we change this? I love saying that we have an opportunity to imagine what we want. So whatever we were talking about here, this result is what we need to put in our minds. And imagination, as I love saying, is very free. You can imagine the worst, you can imagine the best. You can imagine being in the hospital, hospitalized because you have COVID-19, or you can imagine staying healthy and living the life you want. You can imagine losing a job. You can imagine getting one. You can imagine a sickness. You can imagine health. Imagination is free, and that builds into, if we imagine it long enough, it determines our thinking, our feelings. And whatever we think in our hearts becomes our reality. And so, our reality has a tendency to give feedback because it determines our surroundings. So that is what we see around us. And that is why sometimes it's very difficult for somebody who is not educated in this field and has a very unfortunate background, so to speak, to ascend. And the Swahili people said, "Kuku wa maskini hatagi, na akitaga haangui." That is what they meant, because somewhat this thing keeps going again and again. You're experiencing problems because maybe your parents experience the same and things like that. In order to break this, you've got to learn the truth. And the truth is, you can change what is getting into your mind, what is getting into your hearts, what is getting into your emotions. What forms part of your emotions? We are always told that there is a world within, a world of thought and feeling and power and of light. It's a world of life and beauty. Even if it is invisible, it's still powerful. It has force. And it is what happens within that matters much more than what happens around us. And therefore, this is an image I'd like us to keep in our minds, that always, if we watch too much news, negative news, we are going to replicate what they give us. And if we keep thinking negative, it doesn't matter how much prayerful you are, because even your prayer is guided by fear. Like James says in the book of James, that we pray but we don't get, we ask but we don't get, because we ask wrongly. We don't know how to do it. We have no way of thinking the right things as we ask. So the question is, what is your focus? What do you focus on? The law says whatever you focus on expands. If you focus on something, it gets energy, because where your attention goes, energy flows. And then what? Results follow. If your attention goes to how you want to prevent an accident, somewhat you end up getting that accident, because your energy is focused towards that accident. And this is why I keep saying, if you keep thinking too much about COVID, don't be surprised if you ever get it or somebody close to you gets it, because you put a lot of energy into it. What God or what the Creator wants us to put our attention on is truth. And that is peace, be still. You remember when Peter was asked, he wanted to also walk on water, come. And he started and did well, we are told. But then he started sinking. When did he start sinking? By looking around and seeing the sea coming wildly. The sea was wild. The sea was horrifying. And that fear caused him to sink. Most times, we are unable to say, peace, be still. We cannot tell our minds that. But now with knowledge, we should be able to do that. And everyone who ever got out of trouble, out of any big depression, out of any, got healed out of Any disease, it's because they calmed their mind, they calmed their heart, and they said, peace, be still, and focused on health. They focused on healing. They focused on that which they want. And that is the way you start expecting it, because you send energy there and God answers your prayer. I'm reminded of the Great Depression in the 1990s. Lots of people, in fact, it's been recorded that it resulted from the negativity that had come from the previous news that was talking about expectation of the same. Even right now, people are talking of August is going to be a very bad month for Kenya. It's going to be the peak and things like that. It is what you confess. It's what you focus on. Somebody, I was reading somewhere about how the US President Trump got out of his debt of negative 9 billion or something. He focused on what he loved doing. He focused on how he can improve himself. He focused on his strengths. He focused on economic stability and things like that. So all of us must start focusing on that which we want. We must train our thoughts. We must train our hearts. We must train our minds. And at every moment in time, keep asking yourself, where is my focus? What do I focus on? Am I governing my mind well? Where do I put my energy? Where do I spend my energy? Why? What you seek, you find. Seeking means that is where your attention goes. That is where you focus on. What you are aware of, you start learning more about it and getting aware about it, you tend to get more of it. And that's why somebody said that medicine as a science of disease has brought in more diseases, because we keep focusing much about the same situations. So our work is to catch ourselves thinking negative. We must catch ourselves thinking the way thinking about the life we don't want to have, thinking about the experience we don't want to have, thinking about tragedy. We must catch ourselves doing that and switch our attention, because as we have said, we are free to imagine. Imagination is free. If you are thinking thoughts of fear, immediately you can start thinking the right thoughts and saying the right things. Each and every one of us has an opportunity, or you have a mouth, you have your heart to speak. So you can always speak to yourself, speak to your heart. And that is what we call self-talk. What you confess, you possess. What is it that you tell yourself when you wake up? Oh, this is going to be a very tough time. This is going to be a very difficult day. Where am I going to get my rent? Where am I going to get food today? We may lack food. You keep talking about such like things, it means you are giving them power. And you keep giving them power, they manifest more and more and more. And you wonder why in the same marketplace, some people are doing well, some people aren't doing well. It's because of what we focus on. It's because of what we say, what we speak to ourselves. And that's why David in the Psalms would say, the Lord is my shepherd. There is nothing that I lack. I have everything. In other words, if David was maybe not a herdsman, let's say David was a shopkeeper, was a business person, what do you think he would have said? Maybe, the Lord is my supplier. The Lord is my source of supply. I have everything I want. I have all that I need to have around me. Even if problems come, I am stronger than any problem, because I am with him. He guides me. He walks with me. So he tells himself that and writes it. Writing can be very powerful. You can write some positive thoughts every time. Some people, by saying it alone, will not make sense, but if they write, will make some difference in their hearts. Some people need to think about it long enough. Some people need to do it a number of times in a day. So different people will guide you different way. The question is, do you understand yourself? If you can understand yourself, you will be able to know how much dose of this do you need, how much dose of confession do you need, and things like that. And that's why we are told that true worshippers will worship the Father in the Spirit. It is what you have in your heart, what you are feeling there, and in truth. Sometimes we look at our experience and we wonder, how come we keep focusing on the negative, or how come we keep getting just what we don't want? Because when we look back, we don't check our points of victory. Instead, we check our points of failure. Even last exam I failed, or even that time I lost my job, or even this. I always recommend, when you look back, look at how far you've come and say, thus far the Lord has brought us, or thus far I've been able to manage. Things like that. But if you keep looking at the negative past, you somewhat keep feeding yourself the negative things, and what happens is, by the end of the day, you end up being the person you do not want to be, because you get more of it. I remember a friend of mine once told me he loved fighting, and I asked him, what comes to your mind when you're fighting, and how come you also always win? And he told me, before I get involved in any fight, I look back and ask myself, how many battles have I won? And he checks and checks and checks, and then says, even this I'm going to win. I loved that philosophy. He is not schooled, by the way, but I learn even from people who are not schooled, and that's how come sometimes I get this. I remember when I was doing that was MSc in Information Systems. I was attending a class on something to do with telecommunication, and I hadn't prepared enough for a cut. I was just from work, and I'd come from Upper Hill. The best way to reach during that time was you walk. You could not take a taxi. I wasn't driving then. So I walked. Reaching there, I was tired, and I felt like maybe I can fail in this. But then I remembered that statement, that every time before he could get into a fight, he looks back and checks his past victories. I told myself, let me look back and check how many exams I ever passed. And I counted them, and I said, I've always passed all the exams. Even this, I'm going to pass. And I passed it. So when you look forward, that's why I said victory, victory, victory. See victory in the past. See victory in the present. See victory in the future. You keep talking about possibility of failure, you're going to fail. You keep talking about possibility of losing, you're going to lose. It's very important. And this is an absolute truth. There is no question about it. All philosophy agrees to this. All teachers, all spirituality agrees to this. We must think just that which we want to think. So let's confess what we want. Let's think what we want. Let's have results clear that we want to achieve. This year, not this year, but last year, we had a daughter in class 8, so we were choosing schools. I said, well, which school do you want? I did not know about many schools anyway. I did not grow up in Nairobi. So she told me Kenya High. And I said, is it a good school? Yes, it's a good school. Is that where you want? Then I said, well, now that is what you will write. And then I will take you there to have a look. And that is all you need to think about. Don't think about any other school. And we kept talking about it. You're going to Kenya High, you're going to Kenya High. I met many people who said, she needs to be either number 1 or number 2 in the ward, in the ward division, I don't know, in the school. And otherwise, Kenya High won't pick her. I said, well, we'll see how it goes. But then by the end of the day, she wasn't number 1 or number 2 or wherever, even in her own class. But she got there, following the same principle. So when you ask, you must ask by knowing what you're asking. You talk what you expect. And this is why at some point, somebody went to Jesus, and he kept saying, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. Then Jesus asked him, what is it that you want me to do for you? Why? Because he had to say it. Not that Jesus didn't know, but he had to say it. And so he said, let me see. And he was unable to see. So many times we are not sure about what we want. We are not sure about which school we want to go to. We are not sure about which job we want to get. We are not sure about which type of promotion we want to get. Where, things like that. Throughout your life, just check. It is that which you keep thinking, which you keep talking about, that will keep happening to you. And it's very important to keep that in your mind. So that is the way we are all able to steer ourselves away from trouble, away from anything that would negate that which we expect with our thoughts, with our emotions. And it goes a long way into even your relationship, the people you talk to. And even people who are looking into getting into the matrimonial life. The question is, do you pity yourself or do you expect it? Do you see yourself there? We must see ourselves there. Usually the best example for this is when you're going for a journey. Let's say we move from Nairobi to Mombasa. Our focus is on Mombasa. We don't think Mtitwandei or Machakos or any other thing. Usually the problem is, how do we get to believe? This belief is in what we confess, is it in what we think, it is in what we imagine, what we feed in our mind. We keep listening to how many people are dying, how many people are infected. That is what we get to believe, and we get to manifest it. It becomes possible. If we keep thinking of how many people are healthy, how much success we are experiencing, how much is still possible for us, how much love we experience around us, how many friends we have, how many good fortunes we've been able to experience, and we must keep telling ourselves just that which is right. Like, I am governed by divine love. Yeah. In the Bible it says that God directs our path. God is eternal good, directing our paths. So we will be able to experience that which we believe. Even the Israelites perished in the desert because that was their belief. We'll perish in the desert, we'll die in the desert. They did not see themselves in the promised land, and so they perished there. So everything is possible. There is no limitation to this. Everything is possible for one who believes. Now, last time I talked to somebody, some people, they asked, where can I get more reference? Or where can I read more about this? There is a book I first wrote called Live Your Dream in 7 Ds. Everything I've said is in that book. I don't have any hard copy at the moment, but it's on Amazon and it's on Kindle. Just about $3 in Kindle. About if you buy a hard copy, it would be about $13 or $14 thereabout. This one is the latest, which I did which I produced last year. I have just about 20 copies left. The Symphony Orchestra, which is about leadership, timeless leadership. Those two are good enough. Besides whatever I've been mentioning, the others I've been mentioning. Otherwise, thank you very much for this. More about me is on otienopaulpeter.com, and I am excited about living dreams. The latest book, the latest book, I have a few copies, Felix. I have 20 copies, I think so, or maybe a little under 20. So you can always get it from me, just side chat. It was indicated in our invitation that it would last for an hour. An hour is almost just there. So right now it's 15 minutes to that hour, and that will mean people can now ask their questions, and I'll be able to respond within the available minutes. By the time we reach 8, we will still be free to ask or to move on. Oh, somebody asked me, some people asked me, will we be charged? I had said it's free. It's free, but anybody who is willing to give a gift or share a contribution or any donation, you can always use this pay bill and this account number. This particular pay bill 4002222, that supports the Zoom calls and things like that, and any other. But you are not going to be sent any fee note for this. This is a COP account for Live Your Dream. Live Your Dream is our organization, and we will be able to appreciate. The other thing is, if you want to engage us, we do trainings, we do sales, training or leadership, things to do with soft skills, business consultations, we facilitate team buildings. We also have what we call startup integrated program, which is something that helps people to get started from their businesses, from developing concept all the way to letting it run. Yeah. Otherwise, anybody with a comment or a question, you are allowed. This is the time.
Paul
Yes,
Otieno.
thank you. Yes, we can hear you.
Hi,
Hi.
hi
Hi,
everyone.
hi, hi.
I just want to, mine is a comment just to thank you for a wonderful, wonderful talk,
Thank you.
and especially when you're trying to be strong and resilient under very hard circumstances.
Yes.
And I can only say, may the Lord bless you and be with you, and thanks for working with us and encouraging us.
Yes.
I feel I have a better kick for the week. Just listening, not just listening to you, but believing and seeing what you've said. Thank
Thank you
you
very
again.
much. Yes. 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 Yeah. 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 Let me just try to get back to. There's no problem. There's no problem. There's no problem with that at all. This is the formula. It's R. R. R is for results. Results are our experiences, what we see around us, what we go through. Yeah, I'm living in this particular status. That is the results that I've been able to get. It's the scorecard. It's what I see. It's what I have. It's what I can see around, what I experience. It's the health condition. It's my mental state. It's my maybe economic state and things like that. And this I put it as the first because you must start with the results in mind. If you don't have results that you want in mind, most often you get what you don't want. Every one of us must know what we want in order to get it. And that happens a lot, more so where you remember the Eliud Kipchoge. This time he was told that a particular target he was supposed to meet. And if you remember his comments, he said, previously we had just been running. You just want to win, but you do not know what speed or what target you need to hit. And to me, the moment I got that information that he was going for 1.59, I knew it's going to be obvious. It's going to be possible. Because for once, there was a goal in mind. This thing is true to everybody, including politicians. If you focus on, if a politician focuses on preventing the other people from stealing, they end up stealing. So you must know what results do you want. And these results that you want, every time you don't get the results you want, guess whom to blame? You blame yourself. You blame your thoughts, you blame your activities. And so you can always troubleshoot. In our language for IT, we talk of troubleshooting. You troubleshoot, you check, was I thinking the right thoughts? And I said that a thought has two components. What forms your thoughts are, one, what you know, your level of knowledge. If my level of knowledge doesn't allow me or hasn't exposed me to understand what is happening, for example, I don't know about how viruses work, my level of knowledge will make me make the wrong choices. And what fears do I have? My feelings. That is the other component. So what is it that I'm feeling? If I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling terrible, I'm feeling worried, or I have some fear, doubts, those are the things that are going to uh, form my part of my results. They will affect my results negatively or otherwise. And those, then that also determines whatever I do. You see? So I hope that makes quite some sense. Now, if it's clear, you can tell me. Otherwise, somebody else also has a hand up. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, big bro. Yes. Yeah. The next person with the hand up is.
Good evening, dear
Good
friends.
evening. Good evening.
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you for the sharing, which has really been an eye opener for us. And reality remains that as families, we are going through challenges. Not only challenges, but we are living in extraordinary times, and we have to accept that. Just as from your perspective, you shared that our inner world creates our outer world. We totally agree to that, and we can actually share an experience or the first example that we started
Yes.
with, in that when this was first pronounced and we were told that we are now have our first case of
Yeah.
COVID, I'll share with you and tell you that my wife is always prayerful. But every other time, as you mentioned, when fear grips in, you find yourself doing things in an extraordinary
Yeah.
way. And so with those fears and following up news every other day, which was no longer news anymore, but every other time you look at the statistics, you get gripped with more fear. And truth to it, in the long term, I really had to struggle to ensure that stigma does not arise in the family setting.
Yeah.
Because what we realized was every time I stepped out of the house and I was coming back, I was being received by the door and told, remove this, remove that, wash your hands, do that and that. And children were running away. And I'm like, okay, so what's really going on here? So, lucky enough, with my medical background, we had to sit down and discuss. Really, even when I go outside, one, I'm also among people who want to continue living. So I cannot foolishly wish to predispose any of my family members to a disease or a condition like that. And so I'm careful all the time. True to it, we listened watching the news, because mostly we're watching the international news.
Yes.
And you can all agree with me when you're watching Spain, Italy, US, and all that. You will agree with me that things were not as you wish them.
Yeah.
We are all living under
Yeah.
also prayers worked for us, and they're still working for us. Now, one thing also just to mention is that we're in business, and you'll agree with me. In fact, in business, what we told is that our aim for this year, our dream for this year, or our profits for this year, will not be how much money we'll make, but how healthy and how much we will make ourselves to remain healthy as far as this year is concerned. That is what's important. And so, true to it, one other thing that has also remained very important for us and as a focus is many dynamics have crept in, and we've been able, as a family, on family front now, it was important for us also to sit down as a husband and wife and reassess a few things. Among others, we had to accept the reality that we are living in extraordinary times. Two, we had to ensure that we have communication, day in, day out. Because as much as my spouse has fears, I also have my own fears. I also have my own worries. And at the end of the day, when we share, we're able to find space to support each other and continue finding strength in each other's lives. Above all this, as we mentioned, we've also had several adjustments to make life ends meet. And we continue remaining prayerful. And of course, as we say today, we are living one day at a time, and we trust that tomorrow will be better.
That's right.
And with the formula that you shared with us, we now have a scope of how to go about that tomorrow to be better. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The most important thing for us is let's not have any fear. Instead, let's focus on the strength and what we want. Let's have our focus on that which we want. If we focus on how many people are dying, we are going to join them, because what you focus on expands. Let's not talk about all the negatives. Let's keep our homes a positive place. You don't need to know how many people are infected. You stay like that, you'll stay healthy. Just do what you can do. Building your immunity, focusing on your positivity. Most people get healed because of their minds than because of medicine. This one I've learned lots of times from experience. Even my brother who does welding used to have problems with his eyes. Every other time he's done welding, by the end of the day, he cries about his eyes. And he used to love a particular drug. I don't know whether it's there. It was called Diades. It was actually for diarrhea, even as the name suggests. But that is what he would use and he would be fine. While somebody would fail, he would use something else. So most of the times we are healed because we believed in what we are doing. Let's focus on health. Let's focus on profits. You will always get profits if you focus on profits. You will always come out of this trouble if you focus on victory, if you focus on solutions. That's the way it is. Thank you very much. Any other comment? Seems like we are good. We have 2 minutes to reach our 8. Otherwise, I'm very happy and grateful, and I hope each and every one of you enjoyed.